Hello, BookTube. When is a BookTube event not an event? is the question here. I was watching a video earlier today on Rachel Mauro's channel. I'll leave a link to it down below. When she talks about maybe Midrash, which is a BookTube event that was created by Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse and Felicia at Little Prairie Library, designed to encourage you all and celebrate the reading of serious religious-oriented work, fiction or nonfiction. And I've been a host in the past for maybe Midrash, but it is not officially taking place this year. But as Rachel points out, it's kind of a self-driving car. There's an invitation there to read this kind of thing in May. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that serious religious writing of one kind or another is part of my reading diet anyway. I read mostly new releases in the American book market in the genres that interest me, and one of them that very much does is a serious study of religion. Unfortunately, that reading diet is supplemented by garbage because in addition to having a personal interest in reading books, serious discussions of religion, either fiction or nonfiction, I also have to review almost every day very unserious examples of that same kind of writing. So I'm hip deep in this stuff anyway. So I thought, since I'm going to be essentially doing maybe Midrash without there being an event, I thought I would walk you through some of the books that I'm going to highlight. Rachel, in her video, talks about Judaism. Her concentration on maybe Midrash reading, whether it's maybe Midrash event or not, for 2023 will be Jewish related. Fine by me. Absolutely fine by me. I have been reading about the chosen people for a long, long time and consider it fascinating. And of course, extra resonant when it comes to maybe Midrash, since that's the whole word, Midrash, right, is from that religious tradition. So I chose for this video to concentrate on the Jewish studies related books that I'll be reading in the month of May. And hopefully I will come back and give you an idea of what I thought about some of them. And we'll start off with the saddest one of all. One of the saddest stories you could possibly write. This is by Bash von Benda Beckman, and it's his book After the Annex, which tells the story of Anne Frank's father, who survived the death camps, and who, when he gets out, traces what happened to the rest of his family and the other people that were trapped in the annex with them and that are made immortal in Anne Frank's diary. Of course, they all died. And this book is going to pursue that. The author pursues what we know after the story made famous in Anne Frank's book. What was the end of these people, to the best of our ability to know? And I imagine that glowing bright white in the center of this book is the saddest story of all, which is what was Anne's fate. We know roughly what her fate was, but this author apparently has sifted through lots and lots of records to get at every detail that we can know. It's going to be just heartbreaking. I mean, it's heartbreaking anyway. This is the Holocaust, and the final fate of all of these people is heartbreaking anyway. But no offense to all of those other dead people, but Anne Frank, we know. I mean, she wrote an immediately identifiable book. She wrote a classic work of literature. So we know her in a way that would be possible for all the other victims, but there's only one, Diary of Anne Frank. Getting to that moment is going to be just heartbreaking. It's going to just ruin my day. But I want to see what this author has done with it. I've read a few books like this. Then we get to Yaron Eliav, who's a Jewish scholar and a scholar of the ancient world, and this is his new book, A Jew in the Roman Bathhouse. The subtitle is Cultural Interaction in the Ancient Mediterranean. We have a lot of records about bathhouses, not just in Rome, but all over the Roman world, and what they meant to the people who used them and how they were used, and this is fascinating. What would be, how that reflects, how that weaves into what we know of ancient Jewish life. This is right up my alley. I hope that it's well done. I hope that it's entertainingly written. I don't recognize this author's name. I might not have ever read anything by him. Then we have something by Magda Tatar. This is Christian Supremacy. This author is an expert on anti-Semitism and has been much in demand because anti-Semitism has been on a generational spike in this era of the 21st century. Can't imagine why. And I imagine that is the seedbed of this book is, let's look at the roots of this, where it comes from, now that it's all around us, now that it's absolutely inescapable, now that you have presidential candidates and leading headline-grabbing members of Congress in the United States just openly talking in anti-Semitic terms, just openly doing it, just so that you can't go a single hour of a single day without some QAnon nutjob talking about George Soros, or the globalists, or whatever, or the communists, or the Marxists. All these words, these people, these idiots don't know what these words mean. They are all just code words for the Jews. They know they can't say that word. They learned at least that much. Except when they're on, the third-rate Nazi websites like the 8chan type sites where you can go specifically to talk that way. This also will be brutal reading. The Jew in the Bathhouse I will read as a relief from all of this sort of thing. But so too with this next one. This next one does what I always say I like history to do. I like it when historians and biographers take a received narrative and challenge it. I don't like it when they do it in a dumb way, and believe you me, I also don't like it when they make stuff up. Like, for instance, one of the Jewish-related books from the month of May, a new release, that I probably won't be reading, is Pat Robertson's new biography of King David. We'll probably give that a pass for a number of different reasons. But I love it when a historian who knows what they're doing, I like it when they go at a received narrative and say, I want to challenge this. I want to change your mind. I've done all the research. I'm going to lay out my case and you see what you think. I love that. That, for me, is why the disciplines of history and biography are always so thrillingly alive. And this next book is that. It is definitely that. This is by Andrew Porwancher, and this is The Jewish World of Alexander Hamilton. And this author is not claiming in this book that he's not talking here just about a Jewish world. He's saying that Alexander Hamilton was born Jewish and raised that way, and that would account for how sympathetic and allowing and understanding he is of Jews and Jewish causes in his adult world, in his adult writing. This author claims, I think with some justification, that if you just look at Hamilton's writing on the subject of the Jewish world, Jewish issues, it really does seem different than all the other founding fathers. This author is claiming there was a reason for that, and it wasn't just that Alexander Hamilton was the smartest and most broad-minded humanist at the back of the American Revolution. This author is claiming that it's because Alexander Hamilton was a Jew, that he was raised Jewish. And he has huge hurdles here to cross, and I will just be interested to see how he does it. Like, for instance, Alexander Hamilton's mother. I mean, if you're a Jew if you're matrilineal. If your mother was a Jew, then you're a Jew. And Alexander Hamilton's mother wasn't born a Jew. So this author is going to have to claim, A, that he has definite proof that she converted when she married her husband, and B, that conversion is enough to make Alexander Hamilton of Jewish descent. That's a hurdle. He can cross it, maybe, but then there's the question of Hamilton's father, who has a Jewish surname but is not registered anywhere as a Jew in the records. I think I can guess what approach this author will take, because in the Virgin Islands where Hamilton grew up, virtually none of the people in the records are registered as Jews. I think this author will probably say that the author was that Alexander Hamilton's father was avoiding that very designation pointedly, and maybe he will find family records. I am all for it. I don't have a dog in the race. I don't think anybody should. So I'm all for it. I think that there's cause enough to explain why Hamilton was sympathetic to Jewish questions without going so far as to say that he himself was born and raised a Jew. I think there's enough in his upbringing to justify that. And I also think it's part of the nature of the man. But if this author can convince me, I stand ready to be convinced. Can't wait. Then we have, this is Frederick Brandon. This is the story of Intimate Strangers, the enclave of the Jewish world in the Vatican, in Vatican City, in Italy. So before there was a Vatican City, in other words, the community of Jews that grew up since the 2nd century in the shadow of Christianity, in the shadow of Christianity's node of temporal power. There's this hugely unbroken community of observing Jews in that world. I don't recall ever having read a history of that community, and that's what this is. Can't wait to see how much work the author has done. I don't know how long the book is. It should be very long if it wants to cover its subject. And then we'll do the last one here. This is by Isabel Kirshner, who's been writing for the New York Times about Israel forever, for decades. And this is her book, The Land of Hope and Fear, Israel's Battle for Its Inner Soul. This will collect a lot of her writings, I would imagine. I don't know that this is an original work from start to finish. It'd be great either way if it is. This is a really, really good author. And this is an author who knows the subject. She has been, down in the details, down in the very small weeds of the subject for a long time, writing for an audience. In other words, writing in an arena where those who know could contradict her if she's wrong. So I've read some of her work in the Times, but this will be the first book that I've read. And there you go. That is a kind of a May TBR for maybe Midrash. I mean, they'll be. I don't mean this to be exclusive. I wanted to list these because if this did exist as an event, and I were a co-host or were just following along, I think I would probably have gone with Rachel Mauro's lead and concentrated on books about Judaism. But nevertheless, my reading habits encompass many faiths. There are definitely Christian books that I will be reading in the month of May. My remit is to read the major or interesting new releases in the genres that I love. And reading about religious matters definitely counts. So this is a partial TBR for maybe Midrash, but I'd love to know from any of you, if I'm sure that some of you miss the fact that maybe Midrash is not an official event on BookTube this year, but I'd love to know if you're doing any religious reading for it. I'll leave a link to Rachel's video so that you can see that I'm not alone in this. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. A lot of these books look fascinating. Can't wait to get to them. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.